There's something cruel about finding out you were betrayed in the middle of your happiest memories. Like being handed a glass of wine only to realize it's been poisoned. I didn't know it yet, but our 5th anniversary trip would be the beginning of my unraveling, the moment my wife chose sand and skin over vows and truth. And the worst part? It didn't happen in some hotel or dark alley. It happened beneath the boardwalk, with a man whose name she didn't even know. Charleston, South Carolina. Warm breeze. Seagulls overhead. And the smell of salt water clinging to everything. I picked the getaway spot carefully, a quiet Airbnb tucked behind the dunes, right near Folly Beach. Haley had always loved the ocean. She used to say she felt more herself with sand between her toes. 5 years married. I planned everything. Beach walks. Wine tastings. A private boat tour. And for the first 2 days, she seemed radiant. Her freckles lit up in the sun. Her eyes sparkled with that lazy charm I fell in love with. But on the 3rd night, things changed. That evening, I woke up around 1 a.m. to an empty bed. At first, I thought she was in the bathroom, but the light was off. The door was slightly open. No sound. No shower. No Haley. I got up, called her name softly. Nothing. I stepped outside onto the small deck. The air was cool. The ocean hummed in the background, the moon sharp and full. And then I saw them, bare footprints in the sand, leading away from the house. I followed them for a few steps, but I told myself not to be paranoid. Maybe she couldn't sleep. Maybe she went for a walk to clear her head. I waited up for her, scrolling through photos on my phone from earlier that day, her smile as I carried her into the waves. Her laugh when the seagull tried to steal her sandwich. When she finally came back, she looked flushed. Hair messy. Breath quick. You went out? I asked casually, pretending I'd just woken up. She smiled faintly. Yeah. Couldn't sleep. Just needed to walk a little. She kissed my cheek and climbed into bed. Her skin was still warm from outside. I wrapped my arm around her and whispered, "Happy anniversary again." She tensed, just slightly. Almost invisible. I felt it, that microsecond of hesitation, but ignored it. The next morning, I found a bracelet on the kitchen counter. Not one I'd seen before. Thin, woven, with little seashells attached. The kind they sell at beach stands for a few bucks. I picked it up. Is this yours? Haley glanced at it. Oh, yeah. I must have bought it yesterday and forgot. Something about her tone felt flat. I stared at the bracelet for a second longer than I should have. You always hate these touristy things, I said with a small smile. She shrugged. Guess I'm changing. That line, "guess I'm changing," echoed in my head all day. I watched her that afternoon as we lay on the beach. She kept glancing down the shore, like she was expecting someone. Her phone buzzed once. She looked at it quickly, then slid it face down. That night, she said she was tired. Went to bed early. At 2:14 a.m., I woke again. Empty bed. No Haley. This time, I got dressed. Slipped out barefoot. Followed the sand trail. The beach was quiet, silver in moonlight. I walked for nearly 15 minutes before I saw them, 2 shadows under the boardwalk, locked together. My breath caught. I froze behind a dune, hidden by darkness. I saw her clearly now, Haley, sitting on a blanket beneath the old wooden beams. Her hands in someone else's hair. Her lips on someone else's mouth. The man was shirtless. Tanned. Lean. Long hair. He looked like one of those street performers, barefoot and wild, someone who belonged to the road and the waves. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I saw her smile. I hadn't seen her smile like that in months. She laughed, threw her head back. He pulled her close. And I realized this wasn't just a slip. This was desire. Willing. Planned. I should have left right then. But I didn't. I watched them for a few more minutes, my stomach twisting with every second. She ran her fingers along his chest. He whispered something into her neck. She grinned. Then kissed him again, longer this time. I turned back and walked in silence. Each step felt heavier than the last. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even breathe deeply. I just moved, mechanical, numb. By the time I reached the house, dawn was creeping over the horizon. I sat on the porch, staring at the waves, trying to decide whether I was going to confront her. Whether I was going to pretend I never saw it. Whether I even wanted to know more. She came back about 20 minutes later, barefoot, her hair tousled by wind and sin. Couldn't sleep again? I asked, my voice steady. Yeah. Same as before, she said, without looking at me. The ocean helps. She poured herself coffee, like nothing happened. Like I hadn't just watched my wife melt into the arms of a stranger beneath weather-worn wood. I looked at her then. Really looked. And I didn't recognize the woman pouring sugar into her mug. The silence between us the next morning was thick like smoke. I could hear it in every movement she made, the clink of the spoon in her mug, the way her feet dragged lightly across the hardwood. I hadn't slept. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did, and just didn't care anymore. We were supposed to go kayaking that morning, but she said her stomach hurt. I didn't argue. I told her I'd go alone. Truth was, I needed time. I needed space. I needed to feel like a man again, like I wasn't some fool being played by the woman I'd promised forever to. The kayak moved slow across the salt marsh. I paddled through reeds and still water, my hands shaking more from emotion than the effort. Birds called in the distance. The wind was soft, almost mocking. I didn't cry, but something inside me cracked. What haunted me most wasn't the image of her under the boardwalk. It was her face. The way she looked at him, alive. Like she was somewhere I couldn't reach anymore. And he was probably just a drifter. Someone staying in a van parked near the beach. Someone who smelled like patchouli and freedom. A guy who didn't need to know her middle name or her favorite movie or the way she liked her eggs. He just needed to be new. I returned around noon, sand clinging to my calves, sunburn on my neck. She was on the porch, flipping through a paperback she'd probably never finish. Her sunglasses were too big for her face, hiding everything except her mouth. Good trip? She asked, not looking up. Yeah, I said, walking past her. Very peaceful. I showered and stared at myself in the mirror. I was 35. Decent job. Owned our house. Had a little punch from late-night beers and comfort. Nothing extreme, but enough to remind me I wasn't 20 anymore. Was that what this was about? Did she want excitement? A detour from the stability we built? Later that afternoon, I sat across from her on the beach. She was quiet. Sunglasses still on. Hair blowing in the wind. I asked her, "Are you happy?" She looked over slowly. What kind of question is that? A real one. She didn't answer for a moment. Just dug her fingers into the sand like she was trying to bury something. I don't know, she said finally. Sometimes. Sometimes I feel like I'm suffocating and don't know why. It hit me like a slap. Suffocating. With me. I never tried to trap you, I said softly. I know, she replied. It's not you. It's just something inside. But I'd seen the look in her eyes. That something inside had a name. And hands. And a crooked smile she couldn't stop kissing. That night, she said she wanted to go for another walk. I didn't stop her. I just followed silently, about 50 yards behind. She didn't go toward the boardwalk this time. Instead, she cut through the dunes, heading for the far edge of the beach where abandoned lifeguard stands loomed like empty sentries. He was already there. Leaning against a post, his silhouette backlit by the moon. They didn't talk. She just walked into his arms like she'd belonged there for years. And then they moved, quick, desperate. His hands on her hips. Her lips against his throat. My heart caving in. I stood there for 20 minutes. Watching. Frozen. Then I pulled out my phone and took a picture. I didn't know why. Maybe because I needed proof. Maybe because I thought some part of her would deny it, twist the truth like thread until it didn't resemble betrayal anymore. I walked back again. Alone again. Empty again. The next morning, I printed the photo at a pharmacy downtown. The cashier didn't even look at it. Just rang me up like it was any other vacation snapshot. I slipped it into a plain envelope and wrote her name on the front. Haley. When I handed it to her later, her face froze. "What's this?" she asked. "Just open it." She looked at me with a tilt of her head, suspicious, uncertain. Then slid her finger under the seal and pulled the photo out. Her eyes widened, just barely. She stared at it for a long time. Said nothing. Finally, she folded it in half and placed it on the table between us. "You followed me." I nodded. "You spied on me. Don't act like I'm the villain here." "I didn't ask you to come here," she snapped, standing up suddenly. "I didn't ask you to watch." "You didn't have to," I said, voice shaking. "Your silence screamed louder than anything you could have told me." She looked at me for a moment. Her lips trembled, but she didn't cry. "Why him?" I asked. "What does he have that I don't?" She turned away, then back again. And what she said next hit me harder than anything else. "He doesn't expect me to be anyone." That was it. That was her reason. Not love. Not connection. Just freedom from expectations. That night, she didn't sleep in our bed. She stayed on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the moon like it held answers she couldn't find inside herself. And I sat in the living room, holding that folded photo like it was the last piece of a puzzle I never knew we were building. The wind had picked up the next morning. The sky was washed in gray, thick clouds crawling above the coastline like a warning. I woke up alone. Her blanket was still bunched on the porch chair, damp from the ocean air, but she was gone. I walked to the edge of the beach. No sign of her. My first thought was she'd gone back to him. And my second? I didn't care if she came back. That scared me. For 10 years, she'd been my world. My first call, my last thought before sleep. But in 3 nights, that whole world had buckled, crumbled. Now I was just a man with a heartbeat and a photo he couldn't unsee. When she finally returned around noon, she didn't say anything. Just came inside, poured herself a glass of water, and sat down on the floor near the window, like a child. I didn't ask where she'd been. She didn't offer. "Do you love him?" I asked quietly. She didn't answer right away. Just stared out at the surf, her knees pulled to her chest. "I don't know what I feel," she finally said. "It's not love. It's escape." I wanted to scream. Escape from what? We weren't perfect, but I never hurt her, never lied to her. I gave her everything. My heart. My plans. My loyalty. "I need to understand," I said. "Or I can't stay." She turned to me with tired eyes. "That's the thing, maybe you're not supposed to understand. Maybe it's not about you." And just like that, she made her betrayal sound like a private disease I wasn't allowed to examine. That night, I walked out of the house without a word. Drove into town. Needed a place to think or maybe disappear. I ended up at a bar near the docks. One of those old joints with neon signs and cracked leather booths. The kind of place people went to drown quietly. A guy a few stools down saw my face and nodded once. No questions. Just respect for whatever storm I was dragging around. I drank. And drank again. And somewhere between the second and third whiskey, I saw him. Him. The man from the beach. He walked in like he owned the tide. Hair still wet. Flip-flops. A loose shirt that barely clung to his frame. He sat at the end of the bar and ordered tequila without looking at the menu. And I just watched. He didn't know who I was. Of course he didn't. Why would he? But I knew him. Knew the way his hands moved. Knew the sound he made when he laughed, because I'd heard it in the wind, tangled in my wife's moans. I slid off my stool and walked over, calm as hell. He glanced up. Nodded. "What's up, man? You ever think about the people you ruin?" I asked, voice low. His smile faltered. "What?" I said, "Do you ever think about the lives you tear apart?" He blinked. Looked around, unsure if this was a joke. "I don't know what you mean." I leaned in. "My wife. The one you've been meeting under the lifeguard stand." His expression changed. He didn't deny it, just clenched his jaw and looked away. "I didn't know she was married," he muttered. "Does it matter now?" He didn't answer. Just sipped his drink and avoided my eyes. "Tell me something," I said. "Is it worth it?" He looked up finally. "You want the truth?" "Yeah." "She told me you were boring. That she couldn't breathe around you. That you made her feel invisible." That hit harder than the punch I almost threw. Instead, I left. Didn't say another word. Didn't pay my tab. Just walked out into the salt-heavy air and let it burn my lungs. When I got back, she was on the couch. Curled up in that sweater she always wore when she felt guilty. She looked at me like she'd been crying. "Where were you?" she asked softly. "I met him," I said. She froze. "He told me everything. What you said about me." Her eyes shut. "I didn't mean it like that," she whispered. "Yes, you did. And that's the part that kills me. You meant every word." She opened her mouth, but I held up my hand. "I need to know one thing," I said. "Is this still going?" She hesitated. "It's not what you think. Don't play games." "I'm not." "Then say it." "I went to see him this morning." Silence. "I told him I couldn't do it anymore. That I loved you. That I made a mistake." I stared at her. "Do you?" "What? Do you love me?" She looked up with wet, desperate eyes. "I do. But I don't know how to fix this." The pain in my chest was dull now. Familiar. Like living with a bruise. "I don't either," I said. "But I'm not leaving. Not yet." "Why?" "Because I want to see if you'll fight for me the way I would have fought for you." Her eyes filled again. She reached for my hand. I didn't move. The days that followed were quiet. Not peaceful, just quiet. Like the space between thunder and rain. You know it's coming, you just don't know when. She was trying. That's what made it worse. She cooked again. Cleaned. Even played our old playlists around the house. She tried touching me in small ways, a hand on my back, fingers grazing mine during breakfast, the casual closeness she used to give me without thinking. But now it all felt rehearsed. Like she was playing a role she hadn't rehearsed in a long time. I watched her when she wasn't looking. Her smile didn't reach her eyes anymore. Her laugh had a delay, like it was passing through a filter before reaching the surface. And at night, she cried. She thought I didn't hear it. But I did. Every muffled sob into her pillow. Every trembling breath she took when she thought I was asleep. I wanted to forgive her. But my body wouldn't let me. Some scars don't bleed, they just burn. Then came the knock. It was 2 days after the bar. We were having coffee on the deck, both of us pretending to enjoy the silence, when it came a soft, rhythmic knock at the front door. 3 taps. She flinched. I stood, my mug still half full, and walked around to the front. There was no one there. Just a small envelope on the doormat. No name. No markings. Just sealed, clean, anonymous. I opened it. Inside was a single photograph. It was her. Not the beach. Not the bar. Not the moments I'd already swallowed like poison. This was new. She was in a warehouse. Industrial pipes in the background. Her face lit by some dim overhead bulb. Her lips pressed against a man's neck, but not the same man as before. Someone else. Taller. Darker. Face mostly obscured. My stomach dropped. I looked up, scanning the street. No car. No figure. Just silence and an ocean breeze that suddenly felt cold. When I came back inside, she saw the envelope in my hand and froze. Her lips parted like she wanted to speak, but couldn't find the words fast enough. "What is this?" I asked, holding the photo out. She didn't even pretend. Didn't lie. Didn't reach for it. Her face collapsed. "I thought that was gone," she whispered. "You told me it was just one man. Just the beach." She looked at me then, with something I hadn't seen in days. Terror. "Who gave that to you?" "I was hoping you could tell me." She backed up against the kitchen counter, like the room had suddenly gotten smaller. "His name was Silas," she said slowly. "It was before the beach guy. Months before. I met him once. Just once. It wasn't supposed to mean anything." "You're building quite the scrapbook," I said, unable to stop the venom in my voice. She covered her face. "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like?" She paused, chest rising and falling fast. "I was in a program. Not rehab. Not exactly. It was like a retreat. For anxiety. For women who felt like they were drowning in their lives." "And he was what, the lifeguard?" She shook her head. "He was part of the staff. Not officially. He wasn't supposed to be near us. But he found me one night on the roof. Said I looked like I needed to scream." "You chose him?" "No. I didn't choose anyone. I just broke." I sat down hard in the chair behind me. My legs didn't trust me anymore. "You cheated twice?" I asked. She looked down. 3 times. My heart stopped. 3 different men? She nodded, ashamed. I just stared at her. The woman I married, this wasn't her. This was someone I didn't recognize. A stranger with my wife's face and voice. "I'm not even mad anymore," I said, quietly. "I'm just hollow." She crossed the room and knelt beside me. Her eyes were red, not just from crying, from the truth bleeding out. "I need you to understand something," she said. "It wasn't about them. It was about losing myself. About punishing myself for not feeling like I was enough. That's not an excuse. I know." I stared at her hands. The same ones that used to hold me in the dark. "You didn't come here to fix us," I said. "You came here to bury the lie." She didn't deny it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat outside for hours, just listening to the sea. My chest was a battlefield of questions. Who sent the photo? Why now? And how many more pieces of her were out there, scattered in men I'd never met? Around 3 a.m., I heard a noise. Soft. Mechanical. I crept around the side of the house and saw a car, lights off, parked at the bottom of the hill. Engine idling. I couldn't see the driver, but I knew someone was watching. Not just us. Me. A chill ran down my spine. I stepped back into the shadows and pulled out my phone. Took a photo of the plate. Just in case. The car didn't move. It just waited. Like it was part of a game I didn't know I was playing. I didn't sleep a wink that night. The car stayed parked at the bottom of the hill, engine idling, just enough to keep the faintest hum in the air. I stood in the shadows, watching, waiting for the moment when the driver would finally make their move, but they didn't. They just stayed there. Silent. Unmoved. Like a phantom on a stage. I couldn't take it anymore. I pulled my phone from my pocket and snapped a photo of the license plate. I didn't know why. I didn't know what good it would do me, but it felt like something I needed to do. Proof, maybe. A marker in the sand to show that something had happened here, something I couldn't erase. The light from the car flickered, just for a moment, like it was a signal. I turned back to the house, but before I could get inside, the engine roared to life. The car sped off into the night, leaving nothing but the whisper of tires on gravel. I spent the next hour pacing the house. Every inch of the place felt different, like the walls had turned against me. The once cozy corners now felt suffocating. I didn't know if it was because of the betrayal or the haunting feeling that something was still lurking just out of sight. And then I realized, I didn't feel safe in my own home. When morning came, I didn't say a word to her. She noticed the silence, but she didn't ask. Maybe she was waiting for me to crack. Maybe she was hoping I'd forgive her without a fight. But I wasn't ready to forgive. Not yet. And I didn't think I ever would be. I had to get answers. I had to understand why this was happening. The questions gnawed at me like a hungry animal, and I knew the only way to feed it was to follow the trail. I went into town. The first stop was the police station. I didn't expect them to be of much help, but I had to at least make an inquiry about the car. If it was someone watching me, then they had to have some kind of record, right? It wasn't much, a license plate and a vague description of a vehicle. But something about that night felt like the start of a puzzle I couldn't ignore. The officer behind the desk listened with an air of disinterest, as if he had better things to do. When I showed him the photo, his eyes didn't widen. He didn't flinch. He just tapped a few keys on his keyboard and pulled up the plate. "Yeah, we've seen that one around," he said casually. "It's registered to a local business." "Well, kind of." "Kind of?" "Yeah, it's a shell company. The name doesn't mean anything. It's connected to an old security contractor who used to run surveillance systems for the government." That stopped me cold. Surveillance? Yeah. They're off the grid now. Private contractors. Guess they still do a little side work. I didn't know what to think. My wife's betrayal was one thing. This was something else. The officer didn't offer any more details. But I didn't need them. I knew what I had to do next. I left the station and drove straight to the address the officer gave me. It was an old, run-down building on the outskirts of town, the kind of place that looked abandoned but wasn't. I parked across the street, my hands shaking. I didn't know what I expected to find, but I was sure I wasn't going to walk out of there the same. The building was guarded by a high chain-link fence, its rusted edges sharp against the foggy morning. There were no signs, no indication of who or what was inside. I could feel the weight of every decision that had led me here. I had crossed a line I couldn't uncross. I stood at the fence for what felt like an eternity, staring at the building's dark windows. But then I heard footsteps, soft, quick, almost deliberate. I turned just in time to see a man approaching from behind the corner of the building. He was tall, with a face I didn't recognize, but something about him was familiar. His movements were precise, like someone who knew exactly what he was doing. I didn't speak. I couldn't. The man stopped a few feet away, his hands tucked into the pockets of his jacket. He looked me over for a long moment, sizing me up. "You should leave," he said quietly, his voice low and controlled. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice coming out more broken than I intended. "I'm the one who sent the photo," he replied simply. "And I'm the reason you're here." I felt my stomach twist. "You've been watching me." The man nodded slowly. "Not just you. Her, too." I was about to ask what that meant when he held up a hand, silencing me. The truth, he said, is far messier than you think. But you're not ready for it yet. Why? I demanded. Why are you doing this? Because she's not the only one who's been lying. The air between us felt thick now, like something dangerous was closing in. Lying about what? He stepped closer. I'll tell you this, and then I'm gone. But after this, you'll understand. You won't be able to turn back. I stared at him, unable to speak, unable to process. She wasn't just cheating on you, he continued. She was chosen to be. And the moment you found out about him, you became part of a game you didn't even know existed. My heart raced, my hands shaking. Who are you? I whispered. The man smiled. I'm the man who's been watching all of you. He turned and walked away without another word. I stood there for a long time, trying to make sense of what just happened. The truth was right in front of me, but it wasn't the truth I expected. I drove back home in a daze. The world outside the car window felt like it belonged to someone else, like I was watching it from a distance, too far to reach, too far to change. The silence in the car was suffocating. My thoughts were a tangled mess, each one trying to make sense of what I had learned, but none of them getting through. The man at the fence had dropped a bomb on me, and it was too big to ignore. She wasn't just cheating on you. She was chosen to be. The words kept echoing in my mind, replaying over and over like a song I couldn't shake. I pulled into the driveway, parked the car, and just sat there for a moment. My hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, knuckles white. I knew what I had to do, but I didn't know if I was ready to face it. When I walked inside, everything seemed normal, too normal. The house was quiet. The faint sound of a TV playing in the background was the only noise. She was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, as if nothing had happened. As if the world hadn't just shifted beneath us. For a moment, I wanted to pretend nothing had changed. I wanted to forget what I had learned, bury it deep inside me, and go back to the life we had before. But I couldn't. I couldn't unsee what I had seen, and I couldn't unhear what the man had said. She looked up when I entered the room, her eyes meeting mine for the first time that day. There was a flicker of something in her gaze, something I couldn't quite place. Guilt? Fear? Or maybe just the recognition that everything was about to come crashing down. Hey, she said, her voice soft, almost too casual. Hey, I replied, my voice flat. I stood there for a moment, just looking at her, trying to figure out where to start. But in the end, there was only one question that mattered. Why? I asked. Why did you do it? Her face faltered for just a second, the mask of indifference slipping. She took a deep breath, set her phone down on the coffee table, and stood up. You don't understand, she said, her voice trembling slightly. I don't understand? I echoed. You think I don't understand? She shook her head. It's not what you think. You don't know the whole story. I crossed the room, my steps heavy. Then tell me. Tell me everything. Her eyes flickered toward the door, as if she were considering running, escaping. But instead, she just stared at me. I wasn't just cheating on you. I was part of something bigger. Something controlled. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Controlled? I repeated, the confusion deepening. She nodded slowly, as if it was hard for her to admit. There's more to this than just me and him. There's a reason why we met, a reason why we were brought together. It wasn't just random. It was planned. Planned by who? I demanded, the anger rising now. By them, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The man you met at the fence, he's not just some stranger. He's the one who set this whole thing in motion. He's the one who decided that I was the one you would trust. That I was the one you'd love. And that I would destroy you. I felt my chest tighten, like I couldn't breathe. What are you talking about? What do you mean, destroy me? She took a step back, as if afraid of getting too close. He chose me because I was perfect for the role. Perfect for you. For your trust, for your love, for your weakness. And once I had you, it was too late. You were already in the game. The game? I repeated, completely lost now. What game? She shook her head, her hands trembling. It's bigger than you think. Bigger than both of us. It's about control, manipulation, and using people to get what they want. I felt like I was falling down a rabbit hole. Who are these people? What do they want? I don't know, she admitted, her voice breaking. But I've been a part of this for years. I didn't ask for it. I didn't want it. But once you're in, you can't get out. I was chosen, and so were you. You were never supposed to find out, never supposed to see through the lies. But you did. And now everything's falling apart. I stood there, stunned, my mind racing to process what she had just said. I thought I had understood betrayal, but this? This was something else entirely. I couldn't comprehend the depth of it. I never wanted this to happen, she said, her eyes pleading with me. I never wanted to hurt you. I didn't have a choice. You could have walked away, I said, my voice cold. You could have told me. You could have stopped it. I tried, she whispered. I tried so many times, but every time I thought I could leave, they pulled me back in. I stood there for a long time, not knowing what to say. What could I say? I had just learned that the woman I loved wasn't who I thought she was. The life I had built with her, the trust one had given her, it was all a lie. You need to leave, I said, my voice low, almost detached. I need to figure this out. I need to understand what's really going on. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I never wanted to hurt you, I swear. But now you have to make a choice. Do you want the truth, or do you want to keep living the lie? I didn't answer her. I couldn't. She turned and walked to the door, stopping only once to look back at me. Goodbye, she said softly, her voice breaking. The door clicked shut behind her, and for the first time in what felt like forever, the house was empty.